Hello everyone, I'm Liam, a new forensic doctor who has just been deployed at a morgue. The joy of doing the right job of my profession was not yet budding. It was off after the 10th day I performed my job. You can't believe the awful thing I'm about to mention. But let me confirm once again that this is the absolute truth. A terrifying truth in the morgue. The morgue that I'm working at. That day, I worked hard all day long with dozens of corpses. When it was dusk, I was very sleepy. Because it was not after work, I decided to go to the restrooms to take a nap. I was not sure how long I slept, just knowing that it was a very deep and long sleep. I looked at the clock. It was already 9 p.m. I had to take a break, eat something, and go home. I slowly stood up and left the toilet. The outside was the electricity turned off and the dark corridors with yellow light rushed in. And when I was walking for only a few dozen steps away, I suddenly heard a creaking noise inside the corpse room. It seemed that something was bumping into each other. As far as I knew, there was no one here, so what was that noise? I curiously approached and peered through the small hole in the window. A terrifying scene was happening in front of my eyes. On the second inox beds placed female corpses, there were two strange men who were depraving with dead bodies. My throat got choked up. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone and prepared to call the police. But before I could call the police, I got hit hard by a metal object in my head. My mind started to darken and I fell down, unconscious. I woke up in a tightly bound posture. My surroundings were tight and dark. The moldy smell and the smell of corpses rushed to my nose. I tried to stretch my legs out, stroking around, then croak. It seemed like my foot touched something. I realized that I was locked in the cabinet of the corpse. Every bit of coldness covered my body for the first time. I realized how awful it was inside this cabinet. While I was struggling to find a way out of this devilish cabinet, I heard a familiar voice. Man, that was the voice of Max, my colleague. Why was Max here? I started to wonder. Oh yeah, Max was on duty tonight. Well, that would be dangerous for Max. He alone was facing two perverted, sick guys there. But wait, what was that? In Max's words, it did not seem strange to the two men, even a rather informal way of communication. Though the exchange, I realized that the two men were Max's customers. Unbelievable. Outraged, I banged my foot against the door to make a noise, hoping to break out of the stinking wooden cabinet. Max was the one who opened the door for me. He grabbed my collar and pulled me out like a pathetic loser. Max removed the tape on my mouth and began to speak. He asked me to keep this a secret, and threatening if I revealed only half of a word, I would lose my job and even my life. My feeling now was disgust and fear. I alone couldn't oppose the three guys, even the tall Max, so I didn't hesitate, nodding my head at the condition Max had made. After all that happened, the two men left. Max came to me and threw me a lump of money, and of course Max did not forget to reiterate the absolute must-keep condition. I took the money and couldn't resist my curiosity. I asked Max about the relationship between Max and the two guys. Max smirked, introducing them as two of his regular customers. I strained my ears to listen to Max's words, eyes widening, going from surprise to horror. It turned out those two were necrophiliacs. They loved corpses. They had formed a secret society on social networks, and they placed an order with Max whenever there was a new body. Once they were finished having sex with the dead, they would pay Max $1,500. A bargain that was just too large and easy to obscure Max's mind, making him increasingly fall into the quagmire of necrophiliacs. And now, I also became Max's accomplice. For a long time, I had to turn a blind eye. Even on duty, Max always casually led his guests to conduct an exchange of business that lost his humanity. At those times, I hid myself in the toilet, so I didn't have to see that disgusting scene anymore. I was obsessed even in my dream. Every time I looked at that room, there were the cold, bright inox beds containing the corpses. I froze. The feeling of nausea appeared more and more often to me. I felt really bad about my job. I was in agony for those inanimate corpses, pain for the loved ones of those corpses. Everything would continue as if the event that day did not happen. A horrible and turbulent day for this morgue. It was on my shift as usual when Max was bringing in a tall guest. This person was probably coming here for the first time, because I didn't know his face. But that was not my concern. What I was interested in now was the guest who went to the corpse room and took a walk through the beds containing corpses to choose mates. These corpses had just been transferred this afternoon. The guest stopped in front of a bed of a pretty girl. This girl died from a stroke this morning. I had a preliminary examination of this girl. Her nerves died, but her heartbeat was still weak. About 1 hour after the examination, her heart stopped beating. Based on initial analysis, it was likely that this girl had overdosed on heroin, leading to shock and death. The perverted customer started his behavior. This time I did not go to the toilet, because I was busy importing corpses data today into management files. I sat at the desk, the place where just a little glance could see the corrupt things going on. I tried to tell myself to focus on my work instead of being distracted by the images of those vulgar sounds. But no, today I had a very different feeling. Everything around me didn't seem normal. The creak, the inox bed, everything, stuff that vibrated, the sound was dry and cold. The ice cold hands of the corpse were placed on his neck by him. The layers of fabric were peeled off, revealing the pale skin of the poor corpse. Hair drooping, eye sockets with dark circles, dry lips began to have chapped. I had looked at the face of the corpse for too long. So long and so close that I seemed to see very slight movements on that face. Yes, exactly the movements. I was not sure if I was dazzled by thinking too much. I saw that pale face move. Facial muscles occasionally had jerks. The corner of the eye narrowed slightly. The head also began to wobble according to the impact of the guest's hand. And suddenly the shrill scream of the pervert came. The corpse opened its eyes and glared at him. What the hell was going on? The dead body came to life! The man panicked, running away before he could pull his pants up. I myself stood there dumbfounded. I was in a panic with my thoughts in my head, and my feet were wearing lead, so hard I couldn't walk. Max suddenly appeared, just like the way he did to me before. Max hit the girl in the head with a stick, and that girl collapsed unconsciously. Max quickly tied the girl up with a rope, not a little bit frightened. Wow, he must have done this before. The pervert customer started to calm down and frantically dressed in turning straight. When the guest left, Max told me he was going to kill her to keep this a secret. Because she came here anyway, in a dead state of course. Max forced me to kill the girl on his behalf. Like, real kill. I saw in Max's eyes right now the cruelty. Max was no longer a forensic doctor, no. There was a monster in him. Max's fear in me was immense, but my work ethic and conscience had grown much bigger after the obsessions and torments I had with this experience. I trembled with the cane from Max and approached the girl's corpse. And while Max didn't take precautions, I quickly turned around and hit Max with the stick on his head. He fell down. I trembled at my hand and feeling calm, and I pulled my phone and called the police. While waiting for the police to arrive, I tied Max up. After that, I approached the girl. I realized that her heart was still beating. Her pulse was just weak. Just as I had examined it from the beginning, this was a rare case. Clinical death due to stone drug shock. Police sirens resounded loudly, smashing the cold, silent space of the morgue. Max had been captured. He looked at me with eyes of hatred when the police escorted him. The leader, Max, was arrested and necrophilia line was thoroughly investigated. The girl had stabilized and recovered after more than 2 weeks in the recovery room. The morgue returned what belonged to it. I have been back to the normal working days, no longer tormented by this scary and horrific ordeal.